The text came through while I was reviewing case files at my desk. Used your coin collection for down payment on the boat. Collector came by the house yesterday. $15,000 cash. You left them at Mom's years ago. Fair game. See you at Thanksgiving. Uncle Ray. Always taking what wasn't his and justifying it with creative logic. Those coins weren't abandoned collectibles gathering dust. They were evidence. Specifically, they were 127 rare coins seized in a major counterfeiting and money laundering investigation I'd been working on for 2 years as a Treasury Department forensic investigator. Every coin cataloged, authenticated, and legally frozen as protected federal assets pending prosecution. And Uncle Ray had just sold them to some collector for $15,000. Their actual evidentiary value? $900,000. I should explain how evidence worth nearly $1 million ended up stored at my late grandmother's house, where Uncle Ray apparently now had access. 4 years ago I graduated with a degree in economics and numismatics, the study of currency and coins. My family thought it was bizarre. "You're going to work at a pawn shop?" Dad had asked. Uncle Ray had been even less kind, another useless liberal arts degree. Should have gone into real estate like me. What they didn't know was that I'd been recruited by the Treasury Department's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. My thesis on detecting counterfeit rare coins through metallurgical analysis had caught the attention of someone in federal law enforcement. After months of specialized training, I became a forensic investigator focusing on currency crimes, counterfeiting, numismatic fraud, and money laundering through rare coin markets. The case that led to those coins at Grandma's house started 18 months ago when a prominent coin dealer in Philadelphia noticed something wrong. A client had tried to sell him a 1909 SVDB Lincoln cent, one of the most valuable pennies in existence, worth upward of $100,000 in pristine condition. The coin was perfect. Too perfect. Authentication revealed it was a counterfeit, but an extraordinarily sophisticated one. Not just a fake. A counterfeit made with historically accurate materials and techniques that could fool most experts without laboratory testing. The investigation expanded rapidly. We discovered a network producing museum-quality counterfeits of rare American coins. Double eagles, Morgan dollars, buffalo nickels, Indian head pennies. They weren't flooding the market with cheap fakes. They were creating small numbers of perfect replicas sold to wealthy collectors for enormous sums. Over 3 years, this network had sold an estimated $40 million in counterfeit coins to unsuspecting buyers. The counterfeits were so good that even major auction houses had authenticated and sold them. We'd spent 18 months building the case. Wire surveillance, financial forensics, undercover purchases. Finally, we'd executed search warrants and seized 847 counterfeit coins from the network's production facilities and dealers. 127 of those coins were the highest quality examples, the master forgeries, used as templates for making molds and authenticating other counterfeits. These were crucial evidence. Without them, proving the manufacturing process and linking all the defendants would be nearly impossible. Federal evidence protocol required secure storage with climate control and 24-hour monitoring. Our evidence facility had space issues due to a major renovation. My supervisor approved temporary storage at approved secure locations for non-hazardous evidence. Grandma's house qualified. She'd lived alone in a large Victorian with a finished basement, security system, and dehumidifier set up perfect for coin preservation. I'd installed additional cameras, filed all necessary paperwork, and stored the coins in a locked safe. "What's all this fuss about old pennies?" Grandma had asked when I brought the safe over. "Evidence for a case, Grandma. They need to stay locked up. Don't let anyone access them. Who's going to want your old coins? Ray never cared about your collections anyway." That was 3 years ago. Grandma had passed away 8 months ago. I'd been traveling for work during the funeral, testifying in a different case in California. I'd planned to retrieve the coins the following week, but the estate was in probate. Uncle Ray, as executor, controlled access to the house. I'd called him twice about retrieving the safe. Both times he'd said he was too busy with estate stuff, and would let me know when I could come by. Apparently he'd been busy selling the contents instead. I called him immediately. He answered on the second ring, sounding pleased with himself. "Did you get my text? Pretty good negotiation, right? Guy wanted to lowball me at $10,000, but I held firm at $15,000. Ray, those coins weren't yours to sell. They were in Mom's house. I'm the executor. Everything in that house is part of the estate. Except items that don't belong to the estate. Those coins were federal evidence. I told you I needed to retrieve them. You said you had some old coins stored there. You never said they were evidence or whatever. I told you they were work-related property that needed to be retrieved. You've been blocking me from accessing the house for months. Because I've been busy settling the estate. You could have gotten them earlier if they were so important. My jaw clenched. Who did you sell them to? Coin collector. Professional guy. Martin Hess. Has a shop in Cherry Hill. Gave me cash, took the whole safe. Clean transaction. I need his contact information. Now. Why? Sales final. Cash deal. Nothing you can do about it. Ray, those coins are protected federal assets. You just sold evidence in an active Treasury investigation. There are going to be serious consequences. He laughed. Federal assets? Come on. They're old coins you collected as a kid. Stop being dramatic because I sold your childhood hobby stuff. I'm a Treasury forensic investigator. Those coins are evidence in a counterfeiting and money laundering case. They're worth $900,000 as evidence. You sold them for $15,000. Silence. Then, you're bluffing. I'm really not. Send me Hess's information right now, or I'm reporting this to my supervisor and you'll be talking to federal agents instead of me. You can't threaten me. It's not a threat. It's procedure. You sold protected Treasury assets. That's a federal crime. He hung up. I immediately called my supervisor, Director Frank Chin. We have a problem, I said and explained the situation. Chin was quiet for a long moment. The master forgeries? The ones we need for the Anderson trial. All 127 pieces. Anderson's trial starts in 6 weeks. Without those coins we can't prove the manufacturing chain. The defense will argue the counterfeits could have come from anywhere. I know. Who has them now? Coin dealer named Martin Hess in Cherry Hill. I'm trying to get contact information. I know Hess. He's been on our watch list for 2 years. Suspected of laundering money through rare coin sales. If he has those coins, he knows exactly what they are. My stomach dropped. You think he's connected to the network? Possible. Or he's an opportunistic fence who recognized valuable evidence when he saw it. Either way, we need to move fast. I'm sending a recovery team to your location and initiating contact with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Where are you? Home. I can be at the field office in 20 minutes. Get here. And bring all documentation on the evidence storage arrangement. I grabbed my files and headed out. 2 hours later, I sat in a conference room with Chin, 2 other Treasury investigators, an assistant U.S. attorney named Patricia Dorsey, and an IRS criminal investigation agent named Williams. Your uncle sold federal evidence to a person of interest in a related investigation, Dorsey said, reviewing the documents. That's monumentally bad. He didn't know what they were. He knew they weren't his. He was told multiple times they needed to be retrieved for work purposes. He sold them anyway and took cash. She looked up. Did he report this $15,000 income? I doubt it. Williams made a note. Cash transaction over $10,000 not reported. That's a separate violation. The bigger issue, Chin said, is that Martin Hess closed his shop 3 days ago. Disappeared. We sent agents to his last known address. Cleaned out. No forwarding address, disconnected phone, closed bank accounts. The coins are gone, I said. Probably already moved out of state. Possibly already sold to private buyers overseas. These are master forgeries worth significant money to certain collectors who don't ask questions. Dorsey set down her pen. We need to charge your uncle. With what? Theft of federal property. Obstruction of justice. Possible conspiracy if we can prove he knew Hess was connected to the counterfeiting network. He's just greedy and stupid, not criminal. He sold federal evidence and took unreported cash payment. That's criminal. Whether he knew about the counterfeiting is secondary. What about the trial? Anderson's case. Chin grimaced. We'll have to proceed with photographs and authentication records. It weakens the case significantly. The defense will hammer us on chain of custody. We might lose 3 years of work. Dozens of victims who'd purchased counterfeit coins thinking they were real. A sophisticated criminal network. All potentially compromised because Uncle Ray wanted a down payment on a boat. What happens now? I asked. We execute search warrants on your uncle's property and financials. We interview everyone involved in the estate settlement. We try to track Hess and the coins. And we prepare for the possibility that our case falls apart. Thanksgiving dinner at my parents' house was tense even before I arrived. I walked in to find the whole family gathered. Mom, Dad, Uncle Ray, Aunt Linda, my cousins, my sister Jessica. The dining room table was set with Mom's good china. Uncle Ray saw me and grinned. There she is. Hey, thanks for those coins. That boat is beautiful. 26-foot bayliner. You should come see it. Everyone looked at me expectantly. I set my bag down carefully. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Collector gave me a fair price. 15 grand cash. Not bad for stuff that's been sitting in a basement for years. Dad raised his wine glass. Nice work, Ray. Always knew you could negotiate. Those coins weren't raised to sell, I said quietly. The room went silent. Ray's smile faded. We've been over this. They were in Mom's house. They were federal evidence in my custody. You were told repeatedly they needed to be retrieved. Jessica laughed. Federal evidence? Of what? Rare penny crimes? Counterfeiting and money laundering. I'm a Treasury forensic investigator. Those coins were evidence in a case going to trial in 6 weeks. Uncle Ray waved dismissively. You work for the government doing some desk job. Stop exaggerating about old coins to make yourself sound important. I work for Treasury's Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. I investigate currency counterfeiting, numismatic fraud, and money laundering through rare coin markets. The coins you sold were master forgeries seized in a $40 million fraud case. Mom frowned. Master forgeries? What does that mean? The highest quality counterfeit coins in a manufacturing operation. They're used to create molds for making additional forgeries. Without them, we can't prove how the network produced their counterfeits or link all the defendants. If they're counterfeits, why are they worth anything? Aunt Linda asked. Because they're evidence. They prove manufacturing capability, authenticate other seized coins, and establish the scope of the fraud. Their evidentiary value is $900,000. Uncle Ray laughed. $900,000? For fake coins? That's ridiculous. That's their documented value in the case. You sold $900,000 in federal evidence for $15,000 to a dealer who's now disappeared. Dad set down his glass. Disappeared. Martin Hess closed his shop and vanished 3 days after buying the coins from Ray. He's been on Treasury's watch list for years as a suspected money launderer. The color drained from Ray's face. I didn't know. You didn't ask. You just saw an opportunity to make quick cash and took it. Jessica leaned forward. Even if that's all true, how was Ray supposed to know? You left coins at Grandma's house. You never explained what they were. I told him they were work-related property that needed to be retrieved. I called him twice to arrange pickup. He blocked me both times because he was too busy with estate stuff. Apparently, he was busy selling my property instead. It was in my mother's house, Ray said, his voice rising. Under estate law, everything in that house became part of her estate when she died. Except property that doesn't belong to the estate. Property that was explicitly stored there temporarily for work purposes. Property I told you needed to be retrieved. You never said it was evidence. I couldn't disclose case details. But I told you it was work property that couldn't be sold or moved. You did it anyway. Mom touched Ray's arm. Did you really sell her coins without permission? They'd been there for 3 years. She never came to get them. Because you wouldn't let me in the house. You kept saying you were too busy. Aunt Linda looked worried. Ray, if she told you they were work property. She said she had some work stuff stored there. I thought she meant files or old paperwork. Not evidence or whatever. I pulled out my phone and showed him our text exchange from 2 months ago. Here's where I asked to retrieve work-related items from Grandma's basement. You replied, not a good time, estate is complicated, maybe next month. That was the last time you responded before selling everything. Dad read the text. Ray. I was busy. The estate had issues. I couldn't just let her come by whenever. So you sold my property instead? I didn't think it mattered. It matters to the Treasury Department, the U.S. Attorney's Office, and the IRS. Ray went pale. The IRS. You took $15,000 cash and didn't report it as income. That's tax evasion. You also sold federal property without authorization, which is theft. And you obstructed a federal investigation by removing evidence. The room was dead silent. This is insane, Ray said. I made a mistake. I'll give back the money. The coins are gone. Martin Hess disappeared. The money you got was a fraction of their value. And our case is now compromised. Jessica stood up. You're really going to press charges against family over some coins? I'm not pressing charges. The federal government is. I'm just the investigator whose evidence was stolen. Mom looked between us. Can't you just explain it was a misunderstanding? A misunderstanding would be if Ray didn't know I needed the coins back. But I told him multiple times. He ignored me and sold them anyway. That's not a misunderstanding, that's theft. Ray's hands shook. I didn't know they were evidence. I thought you were just being difficult about old collectibles. Biz, you never listened. You never believed I had an important job. You've spent years calling my career worthless. That's not fair. You literally told everyone I worked some desk job. You've mocked my economics degree for years. You've never once asked what I actually do. Dad cleared his throat. To be fair, you never told us much about your work. Because it's classified federal investigations. I can't discuss active cases. But I told you I work for Treasury investigating financial crimes. You just didn't believe it was real work. The doorbell rang. Mom went to answer it. Two men in dark suits stood on the porch. Mrs. Patterson? We're with the Treasury Department. We need to speak with Raymond Patterson. Mom's hand went to her mouth. Oh God. The agent stepped inside. Mr. Patterson, I'm Special Agent Kirkland. This is Special Agent Morris. We need to discuss the sale of federal evidence that was in your possession. Uncle Ray stood frozen. I want a lawyer. That's your right. But we need to ask you some questions about Martin Hess and the coin sale. I don't know anything about Hess except he bought some coins. Coins that were federal evidence in an active investigation. Coins you sold without authorization despite being told repeatedly they needed to be retrieved by the Treasury investigator who stored them. Aunt Linda grabbed Ray's arm. Don't say anything without a lawyer. Agent Kirkland nodded. We also need to discuss the $15,000 cash payment you received and didn't report as income. How did you? Ray stopped. The IRS has been notified. They'll be contacting you about the unreported income and possible tax evasion charges. Ray sank into a chair. This can't be happening. We have a warrant to search your home and vehicles. We also have a court order freezing your bank accounts pending investigation into the source and disposition of the $15,000. You're freezing my accounts? Standard procedure when investigating theft of federal property and potential money laundering. We need to trace where the money went and ensure no additional evidence has been hidden or destroyed. Jessica stepped forward. This is harassment. My uncle made an honest mistake. Your uncle sold federal evidence worth $900,000 for $15,000 cash to a known person of interest in a related investigation. That's not an honest mistake. That's a crime. Agent Morris handed papers to Ray. These are the search warrants and asset freeze orders. A team is already at your residence. You'll need to come with us to answer questions. Am I being arrested? Not at this time. But you're a subject in a federal investigation. We strongly recommend you cooperate. Ray looked at me, his face desperate. Can't you do something? Tell them I didn't know. You did know. I told you. You chose not to listen. Please. I'll pay back the money. I'll help find Hess. Just, don't let them charge me. It's not up to me. You stole federal evidence. There are consequences. Agent Kirkland gestured to the door. Mr. Patterson, we need to go. Ray stood slowly. Aunt Linda started crying. Dad looked stunned. As they led Ray out, he turned back. The boat. I just wanted a boat. The door closed behind them. 3 weeks later, I sat in the U.S. Attorney's office as they laid out Ray's options. We've frozen his accounts, seized the boat and recovered $8,000 of the original $15,000, Patricia Dorsey explained. The other $7,000 was spent on boat expenses and house repairs. What about the coins? I asked. Still missing. Hess is in the wind. But we tracked the sale to 3 overseas buyers through wire transfers. We're working with Interpol to recover them, but it's complicated. So the trial? We're proceeding with alternative evidence. Photographs, authentication records, expert testimony. It's weaker than having the physical coins, but we have enough to prove the manufacturing process. The defense is already filing motions to suppress based on chain of custody issues. Because of Ray. We might still win, but he's made it much harder. What happens to him? Dorsey slid papers across the desk. These are his options. Option 1. Plead guilty to theft of federal property and tax evasion. Sentence recommendation of 3 years federal prison, $100,000 in fines, and full restitution for investigative costs, approximately $175,000. I winced. He doesn't have that kind of money. Then he sells assets. His house, vehicles, retirement accounts. The boat's already been seized and will be auctioned. Option 2. He cooperates fully. Testifies against Hess if we find him. Provides any information about the sale. Pleads to reduce charges. Mishandling federal property and failure to report income. Sentence recommendation of 18 months prison, 2 years supervised release, $50,000 fine and $75,000 restitution. He'll take option 2. He should. Bez option 3 is we take this to trial. If convicted, he's looking at 8 to 10 years federal prison and up to $500,000 in fines. That would destroy him. He destroyed a federal investigation. Actions have consequences. I left the office feeling sick. 2 months later, Ray stood in federal court and pleaded guilty to mishandling federal property and tax evasion. The judge, a woman named Sandra Portman, was not sympathetic. Mr. Patterson, you were explicitly told that items in your possession were federal property that needed to be returned. You ignored those requests and sold the property for personal gain. You then failed to report the income from that illegal sale. Do you understand the seriousness of these charges? Yes, Your Honor, Ray said quietly. Your actions compromised a major federal investigation involving millions of dollars in fraud. Victims of that fraud may not see justice because of your greed and negligence. I didn't know. You didn't care to know. You saw an opportunity for quick money and took it. That's not an excuse. Judge Portman reviewed the sentencing recommendation. The government has recommended 18 months federal prison, 2 years supervised release, $50,000 fine and $75,000 restitution. Do you understand these terms? Yes, Your Honor. The restitution covers the cost of additional investigation, expert testimony, and recovery efforts necessitated by your theft. If you cannot pay, your assets will be liquidated. Is that clear? Yes, Your Honor. You will report to the Bureau of Prisons within 30 days. You will have no contact with Martin Hess or any individuals associated with the counterfeiting investigation. You will cooperate fully with any ongoing recovery efforts. Violation of these terms will result in additional charges. I understand. Then I accept your plea and impose the recommended sentence. 18 months federal prison, 2 years supervised release, $50,000 fine payable within 5 years, and $75,000 restitution payable within 3 years or through asset liquidation. The gavel came down. Ray turned to look at me, his eyes filled with regret and anger. I looked away. 6 months later, the Anderson counterfeiting trial concluded. Despite the missing coins, we secured convictions on all major charges. The network leaders received sentences ranging from 12 to 23 years. Total restitution, $41 million. Ray served 14 months at a federal prison camp in Pennsylvania. His house was sold to cover restitution. His retirement account was liquidated. Aunt Linda divorced him 3 months into his sentence. When he was released, he called me. I'm out, he said. Thought you should know. How are you? Broke. Divorced. Living in a studio apartment. Working at a hardware store. Paying restitution for the next 2 years. I'm sorry it turned out this way. Are you? You could have helped me. Your family. You stole federal evidence. I couldn't protect you from that. I made a mistake. I didn't deserve to lose everything. You didn't just make a mistake, Ray. You took something that wasn't yours, sold it for cash and didn't report the income. You ignored me when I told you I needed it back. You assumed my work wasn't important because you never believed I had a real career. Silence. I never thought you were important, he admitted. I thought you had some government paper-pushing job. I didn't think coins mattered. They mattered to the victims who lost millions to counterfeiting. They mattered to the case that put criminals in prison. They mattered to me. I know that now. It's too late now. He hung up. I haven't spoken to him since. The family still doesn't fully understand what I do. They know I work for Treasury. They know I investigate financial crimes. They know Uncle Ray went to prison because of something involving my work. But they still don't really get it. They still don't ask questions. And I've stopped trying to explain. The coins were eventually recovered, all 127 pieces. Interpol tracked them to collectors in Switzerland and Japan. Full recovery took 11 months and cost an additional $200,000 in international coordination. That cost was added to Ray's restitution. He'll be paying it off until he's 70. And every payment is a reminder that my unimportant desk job and worthless coin collection were worth more than he ever imagined.